Whether you're a life coach, therapist, biohacker, invested in wellness, or in the healthcare profession, if you have an intention to work in psychedelic spaces, you're in the right place then. If you're called, get involved. But first, get informed. Let's talk the 4 N's: intake, intention, in-space integration, leading to deeper transformations. Psychedelic Coach Podcast, Tah Cole. Walk you through the process, it's all possible. Leave space for the follow through. Most importantly, integration is not optional.
Peace, all my Psychedelic Coach Podcast heads. What's going on? It's Tah. I'm excited about today's episode. Today, I have an amazing human named Dr. Kyei-Frimpong. And I met Dr. Jamie at an event called Reconsider that took place in New York, upstate New York. It was a group, they brought out a group of 22 nurses from all over the United States and Canada to talk about the state of health, the state of wellness, the state of the healthcare industry in regards to psychedelics and how psychedelics are going to be moving into the health industry. It's probably one of the most exciting things I've ever had happen in my life is being at this event. And I've been to a lot of things. And to have nurses there who are really expanding into the space of ushering in psychedelics into the wellness industry is beyond my wildest dreams. And I'm actually living in my wildest dreams. So Dr. Jamie is a nurse practitioner. She works very, very deeply in holistic, medicine, and she works a lot with Lyme, and she's had her own experiences with this stuff, and I'm just going to let her talk about it, but I'm really excited. I wanted to just jump on here and let y'all know that I'm pumped about this. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast. Let's go.
Some things need to be healed in community, and we offer you something unparalleled with the Condor Approach Live. We're going to talk about how to prepare for, navigate, and integrate your psychedelic experiences for yourself or those that you love. These live events are catalysts. They really allow you to uncover and unleash the potential that you already have within you. When you're surrounded by like-minded people who are walking the walk and are committed to the path, you may even find your next facilitator or coach, but this event is designed to foster genuine relationships, give you community that supports and uplifts you, wants to see you win. If you've been wanting to embody this understanding and take these skills to a new level, then a live dynamic environment is just the way. You can go to thecondorapproach.com. That is thecondorapproach.com, and we will see you in February.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Psychedelic Coach Podcast. My name is Tah, but you know about me already. I have an amazing guest here with me today, Jamie Kyei-Frimpong. And I like to call her Dr. Jamie. She's an amazing human being. I met Jamie recently at an event called Reconsider, and it was Reconsider for nurses. And we got together with 22 nurses from all over the United States and one from Canada, all in the psychedelic space. And it's a really exciting time for me because this has been something that's been on my dreamscape for a long, long time. To actually have a nurse, not just a nurse, 22 nurses in the space that were in the space of exploring psychedelics, learning about psychedelics, and diving into the expansion and the possibilities of reconsidering our entire wellness industry. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Jamie to the podcast. How you doing, family?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Great to see you. Great to have you here. I'd like to start off with just introducing the people to you and you telling the people a little bit about what it is that you do.
Yeah, so I am a nurse practitioner. I have my doctorate in nursing, and I am certified in functional medicine. So what that does is it gets to the root cause of illness. And I believe a lot of root causes have a little bit of a psychological component, and that's where psychedelics come in. Psychedelics were part of my own healing process. So I've been doing more education on that. But in my practice, I deal with a lot of hormone issues, toxicity issues, those kinds of things. I have a fully virtual practice within the states that I'm licensed in.
Epic. I love it. How long have you been doing this?
Oh, I graduated in 2008. I was originally an HIV specialist, and within my own own healing journey, I transitioned to functional medicine in 2016.
Sweet. Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for what you're doing. I graduated from nursing school in 1992. And that's when I started working. And so I love the broad range of people that have been in the game and what they're doing and all the things that people are doing. And the functional medicine space has been a space that has had a lot of question marks. When I was in clinical nursing, there was a lot of question marks around it. And now it's being widely accepted. And there was a lot of resistance. And this month in the Psychedelic Coach Podcast and Masterclass Mondays, we're talking about overcoming resistance. And so I know I had a lot of resistance around functional medicine. I had a lot of resistance around anything outside of what traditional healthcare said was the way to do things. And so part of me moving away from that circumstance was me questioning the industry, me questioning the practices, all of the questionable things that were going on inside of the hospital system. What are your thoughts on the hospital system and how things operate inside now?
I haven't been in that system in such a long time, but I find it to be really ineffective. Everything is it's not based on prevention, it's based on treating a disease. So you're not going to get help when you're building towards having a disease and helping to prevent it. It doesn't pay. Right? Our healthcare system is all based on money. And so insurance is not going to pay for all of that prevention. They're not going to pay for the extended time that I take with patients to do education, which is what nursing is all about. It pays more to prescribe pharmaceuticals and to treat diseases and to do all of those things and to see a mass amount of patients on a daily basis.
You're speaking my language. This is part of the issue with me, and this is one of the reasons I left the industry, because I took an oath to do no harm. We all took a Hippocratic oath in order to get our nursing degrees and licenses. And part of me felt like I was lying all the time, and I wasn't serving people, and I wasn't showing up. And I had to actually lean into unhooking the system from my nervous system. Anytime somebody spoke about holistic nursing, anytime somebody, and that's something I learned in nursing, and it became this whole poo-poo thing. If the doctor doesn't prescribe it, if Big Pharma doesn't approve of it, then it's no good. And I found myself surrounded by people that were just sick over and over again. And why did people keep coming back to the hospital? How come nobody follows their discharge instructions? How come nobody does this? What's going on? Is it me? Am I seeing something wrong? And it was the system. It still is the system. And so, I really want to give kudos to you for doing the work that you're doing to step outside of the industry. What made you actually move away from traditional nursing?
Honestly, my own health journey was a piece of it, but it's also the frustration in that you couldn't really. I knew I was doing things that were causing harm. So for instance, when I was in the HIV world, of course, I worked with young adults and adolescents. So I was treating STDs all the time, and I'm constantly giving antibiotics that impact the gut health. They can't afford probiotics. They can't afford like vitamins and all of those things. And then when I kind of transitioned into primary care, one of the biggest ones was thyroid issues. We were barely doing labs for thyroids. We only did them on females, never on males. Men have thyroid issues, but then when patients would want to know, like, what can I do for my diet and any of these kinds of things, it's not evidence-based to discuss diet. I worked at Columbia. That's where I went to nursing school. And so everything had to be evidence-based for us to be able to talk about it. And I was starting to learn about functional medicine while I was working there. And I was like, I'm just pumping out pills or giving you a referral, go see endocrine, and I'm not really helping anybody. It was frustrating because people wanted to know. And then on my own health journey, I went from doctor to doctor to doctor trying to figure out what was going on for me. I ended up having to take an antibiotic for 6 months after being exposed to tuberculosis. that impacted my gut. My thyroid and adrenals were off because I was an endurance athlete on top of like type A chronic, like most nurses, right? And working all the time in school and just life stressors and all of that. And then later, years down the road, because even when you see integrative providers and functional medicine providers, they can miss the mark. I was diagnosed with mold toxicity. And I also currently live symbiotically with Lyme and co-infections because I've managed my immune system and all of that. But you see so many people who can't figure it out. And it's all in the conventional model. Conventional model is not going to diagnose Lyme accurately. They're not going to diagnose, they don't even know what mold toxicity is. Most of them don't even check your hormone panels. I was talking to my hairdresser today about PCOS, and they don't even test that properly or even treat it in a way that does less harm than good.
Can you share for people what PCOS is? I mean, I know. Can you share what it is?
That is polycystic ovarian syndrome. So it's basically when you have cysts on your ovaries, but you have elevated testosterone, other hormone imbalances, and a lot of times you have blood sugar dysregulation. So in conventional medicine, the answer is take a birth control pill, which we've learned a lot about how that impacts our body. And here's some metformin, which is a diabetes medication to manage your blood sugar, which also has, it's in the longevity line of medications, but it also has side effects. For instance, it reduces your B12 levels, which is an energy vitamin. I have more holistic ways of treating that.
What would be more holistic ways? What does that mean?
Looking at your gut health, number one. Using other supplements in order to manage your blood sugar, also managing diet, managing stress, sleep, all of those things, and having other supplements to balance hormones.
I'm getting goosebumps right now because you're speaking my language. And most of the time when I'm speaking this language on this podcast, people are like, I didn't know about this stuff. So thank you for backing me up, number one, right? Number two, for helping the people that you're helping. Thank you for everything that you've experienced in your life to get you to the point that you're serving people the way that you are. This is lighting me up. And this is one of the reasons why at Reconsider, I was so lit up, is because I had other nurses that were like, this, wow, like this is my wildest dream. And so you are part of that, definitely. Okay? Yeah. You're definitely part of my wildest dream, and I appreciate it. The things that you're speaking about sound completely off kilter from what traditional physicians are rendering to patients. And from my experience, people get overwhelmed because they don't know a lot of the things that you're talking about. So how can people lean into what you're doing and not be overwhelmed? What would they need to do? What would you suggest?
I mean, honestly, I think scheduling with somebody, or, I offer discovery calls that are free to have a conversation about some of these things. Unfortunately, in our world now, social media has taken over. So there's a lot of people who are preaching information on Instagram and all of that, and they may not have the actual qualifications to back them up, because you can do functional medicine without actually having a medical degree, whether you're a health coach or some functional medicine, nutrition training, that kind of stuff. But the piece that they miss is they don't have the medical background. So I'll still use pharmaceuticals sometimes because it's complementary medicine. So they miss that piece. And they're also practicing outside of their scope, because unless you have a medical degree, most of the time you shouldn't be reviewing labs and all of that. I'm certified through the Institute for Functional Medicine, and you can look on there for practitioners. And then I think it's just about following people who on social media who maybe have a niche that's related to an issue that you're experiencing, and you can build some information from all of that. Just being careful on who you're following, because there is 100% a lot of misinformation out there.
Thank you for that. And thank you for saying that you have discovery calls. That's awesome. And you offer them for free.
Yeah.
That's almost like get out of here, a free discovery call. And so at the end of this, we can figure out how we can get people to schedule with you if they're feeling connected, which I know they will be feeling connected. There was something that you had said a few moments ago that I wanted to dive into, and it was complementary medicine. What does that mean?
It's a combination of an integrative approach, which functional medicine is, to conventional medicine. The integrative is complementary to the conventional side. So it's the idea of somebody has an underactive thyroid, meaning hypothyroid. they need a medication to treat that. But we can also use an integrative approach between vitamins and minerals that are important for the conversion of your thyroid hormones to help support that, along with any other lifestyle factors that play in. So that's the idea of complementary. Sometimes we need an antibiotic for our illness, but we can still take all the vitamins and minerals that are important for our immune system, and don't have dairy because it increases your congestion, and looking at some of those things.
So it's like an entourage, right? You get everybody together to work together so that they complement one another. And that brings a person into a space with it's all of the angles. Most of the time when I was in the hospital system, it was people would come in, they get treated, it's take these medications and go home. And there was no talk about diet. There was no talk about exercise. There was no talk about changing your environment. There was no talk about all of these other factors that are involved. And so these things complement one another. And so thank you for that explanation. It was beautiful. I really appreciate that. And so like I said, overcoming resistance has been is the theme this month with us at the Psychedelic Coach Podcast, Masterclass Mondays, Condor Approach, and all of that stuff. There's a question I have for you is, why do many people not heal? Is there resistance around that?
I think it's a multifold answer. I'm going to give you two answers on the resistance side, and then I'll give you another answer that maybe doesn't have as much to do with resistance. I think one thing is that in reality, to access services such that I provide, you have to pay out of pocket for it because I don't take insurance. So a lot of people have a resistance to spending money on healing because everybody wants to use their insurance. So that's like a financial side. I think there's also a resistance to healing, especially when we look at people who are chronically ill because they identify with their diagnosis. Like I said, I live symbiotically with Lyme. Now, a lot of people who have Lyme will talk about my Lyme or I have this, and they're very much identified with that diagnosis. Well, that's part of your identity. You're going to have some issues when you get rid of it. They also don't know what it looks like, and it's almost scary. What does it look like to be healthy? I've always had this problem. What does it look like to not have this issue? Even if you had like diabetes, what does it look like to not have to take all these medications and to actually be healthy? Everybody says, my diabetes, my high blood pressure, all of these things. And so they're identifying with that diagnosis. I think there's a fear of not having it, which sounds counterintuitive. And then the other side of it is we're not always getting to the root cause of things. And that's a really big component. And then with not healing, sometimes that root cause is going to be your trauma response, what you've gone through. So looking at the nervous system and some of those aspects, there's an energetic component to it as well.
Yeah, there's definitely an energetic component and a nervous system component. I mean, we all have nervous systems, and there's a lot of hype right now come on now. There's a lot of hype right now on the internet around nervous system regulation.
Yep.
And I would love to dive into, do you feel like there's an issue with that, like a problem with the hype around regulating your nervous system? What does that, first of all, what does that mean? What does that mean? Regulate your nervous system.
Here's the thing, anything that's hype is because it's what is giving them money. So you're going to have your niche and you're going to jump on whatever's paying. So whatever's popular. And then it misses the mark because it's not just about the nervous system. I just posted about this yesterday. I have more posts kind of planned. I will talk about the nervous system, but it's a multifold thing. Again, it's not one thing that's going to heal us. But I think the people are looking at it in different ways. A lot of the stuff that you see on how to regulate your nervous system is really what you're doing to regulate your cortisol response. And balance your blood sugar and some of those things. And then you'll have the other ones who are doing like somatic approach or that kind of stuff. But then my question is, when you do all of that, what do you do with the emotions or the energy that's in there that you don't know how to manage through some of those? And there's a lot of stuff on social media. Okay, even with somatics, like do all of these exercises. This is going to help you lose weight. Or I saw something the other day about the nervous system, and the nervous system causes hypothyroid. Well, there's many causes of hypothyroid. It can cause it. So there's a lot of verbiage. It's the way that people speak about it without saying there's more than one cause of all these things. It's not this one thing. But if I tell you the nervous system causes it, I'm going to hook you and you're going to buy into that because, oh, I can do that. And that's going to heal me.
Mm-hmm.
But we're missing, again, energetics and emotions. Why is our nervous system dysregulated? Because when we have trauma and all of these things, because we don't allow ourselves to feel those emotions, number one, because they're scary. And then we also have that trapped energy from all of those responses that we need to kind of move out. So it's not just about meditating or getting your morning sun or reducing your cortisol. It's a multifold approach to all of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a multifold approach to being a human being, right? You have your spirit, you have your mind and mental processes, you have your constructs, right? You have all the systems and the identities and the things you ascribe to, your religion, your race, and then we have our emotional structure, and then we have our body, and we have our microbiome. We have all these different aspects of the self, and so they have to be integrated. And I feel like what you do is a space that kind of brings the whole human together.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, some of the stuff that you do, it's changing how people talk to themselves, how people think and process. And when we do that, that also calms the nervous system. That's part of processing your emotions and doing all of that stuff. And that's what happens in integration with all the things, psychedelics and everything else. We have to integrate all of our experiences.
Yeah, so roping it back around to psychedelics, since we're here on the Psychedelic Coach Podcast, right? So roping it back around, the nervous system is affected by psychedelic experiences. What have you seen as far as expansions with yourself or other people, with clients, in how psychedelic experiences have affected a person's nervous system and their ability to actually heal circumstances and situations that are involving emotional blocks and energetic blocks and so on?
So for me, I always share this. I'm a really intense individual. My first experience with psychedelics was I went to Peru and did 7 ayahuasca ceremonies in 2 weeks. Not really recommended for people to do that on their first experience. But that was a full life-changing experience for me. A lot of it was I had fears around, again, I'm a nurse practitioner. Usually you work underneath a medical doctor. And I was really fighting to have my own authority and autonomy and all of that. And I always wanted my own practice so that I can do all of this stuff and I can be who I am. But I feared doing all that. Doing psychedelics helped me open up my own practice, helped me work towards really having my voice and being open about speaking about all of these things, about being okay sharing my past and all of that. I do have a history as a kid of trauma and that kind of stuff. And so that was one for me, a big healing component. And I've continued to dabble with psychedelics, and it's taught me how to actually process those emotions, because I came back with no integration support. I didn't have a lot of prep support, and I had to figure out, well, I'm feeling all of this anger, and how do I manage to process it? Like, I had tools and I was able to work through it, but I had to learn to actually feel anger, which was an emotion I never felt before. So that was one from my personal experience. I recently had a patient who had actually come to me. She had already had her Lyme treated with another practitioner, but she still wasn't quite feeling well. And we were working on treating some mold toxicity for her, and we were working on her gut health as well. And she was really great and already in tune with her body. She does Reiki, she's a massage therapist, all of those things. And we had talked a little bit about psychedelics, and she gradually got interested in it. And she was doing a lot of her own somatic work as we were doing the treatments, because it was just naturally with the treatments of treating her gut and that kind of stuff that she was having a somatic experience. She ended up doing a psilocybin experience with a practitioner and kind of made peace with the fact that she needs no more treatment. Lyme is gone. There's no more mold. all of these things. And it's not even one that like we retested anything. She was just like, I don't feel that I need to continue these things. We put together a plan of just some basic vitamins and minerals and like to support her ongoingly. But she literally having a conversation with her, I wanted to cry. It was our last visit because she was transitioning out, just in how much she was glowing. It was incredible. And just to watch her journey, that to me was like the most exciting one. There is research. Johns Hopkins is doing research for post-Lyme treatment, psilocybin, psychedelic experiences.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. See, I didn't know about the Lyme experiences.
Well, and that's a piece of identifying with a diagnosis and the idea of having Lyme. It's so hard. People spend hundreds of thousands of dollars working on treating it. The testing is expensive. All the supplements are expensive, all the extra treatments. And you get this identity. And it's like, I still have a fear of Lyme. We were at a retreat in New York. I was like, oh my God, ticks. I just don't want to like have anything resurge anything in me. Which is honestly, that's something I have to work through. It's one of those steps I'm actively working on.
Mhm.
But so I think it was an aspect of her, oh, I'm at peace. Like these things are A-okay. Like we're good. It's a component of the healing. And that's kind of where in a lot of the chronic illness world, they talk about limbic system retraining and all of that. I think psychedelics can be utilized in a much faster way for healing that, because psychedelics increase neuroplasticity. They're going to reset that nervous system and all of those things. And I think looking at the limbic system, it's resetting you and helping you to process, get you out of that fight or flight response and put things back together, because your nervous system has been fully taxed by just naturally being in fight or flight because you have an infection or a toxicity or any of those kinds of things. It's a natural stressor on your body that you can't fully control. I think psychedelics are more promising in that realm just because, remember, it's a faster approach and I feel like you gain more out of it life-wise.
Yes. You're speaking my language. You're so speaking my language. And you touched on a few points that really hit home with me. As far as diagnosis is concerned, diagnosis for me can be a very dangerous place because people take the diagnosis and they put it into their identity. The identity complex is a very, very intricate, deeply woven situation. And the way we in our society, particularly in the Western culture, the amount of energy and authority that we put on doctors, what the doctor says, 9 out of 10 doctors recommend, doctors. So when we hear a doctor say something, we have more of a space of neuroplasticity around what a doctor has to say to take that and embed it into the nervous system. Doctor, lawyer, engineer, politician, parent, right? Yep. Those are the people who we listen to absolutely the most and more than anything else. But doctors are really high on that list. And we will take that diagnosis and embed it immediately. I've had so many people say, oh, I'm so glad my doctor told me this. Now I can rest because now I know what is wrong with me. And that puts a person into a position to start crafting their body around a disease. And that is, have you ever read Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief?
Yes, sir. It's one of my favorites.
Such a great book. And anybody who hasn't read that, go read The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. And in this book, he talks about how we believe so deeply in things that we craft our bodies around that. It's fascinating. And it's something that energetically, when we have a belief structure that we embed into the body energetically, it interrupts processes or it causes processes. And so there's another question I wanted to ask you. What's the connection between healing and the energetic body? Because we're talking about psychedelics and we're talking about neuroplasticity, and all of these things have to do with energy within the self. How does that all correlate?
Yeah. I mean, well, we all store, I mean, obviously The Body Keeps the Score is one of those books that really kind of puts the science between some of the energy storage, but
That's
you
organic
can
Coke.
back as to chakras.
Mhm.
You know, chakras are where we store energy as well. And it's within the nervous system, right? Because it's up and down along your spine. That's where we can have some of those issues. If you're looking at the spine, that's part of your nervous system, right? I do a healing with, it's only done by chiropractors. It's called network spinal analysis. And they go through, they touch in different aspects, and it moves the energy in your spine, and your spine will actually move. And I can do that instead of actually, my lower back will get hurt a lot. It's tight from deadlifting, so I power lift. And I've been doing that, and I haven't actually had to have an actual manipulation. It'll work on your neck, and that's because we store our stress, we store all those energies within the spine, and it's a way of moving it. It was one of the very first things that I did on my healing journey, to move the energies, which then changes our thought processes, because we're not so stuck like this all the time. And we have to unstick that energy in order to then work on the emotions and the mind process and all of those things. And there's many different ways that you can do energy healing. It's even just a combination of, I always have crystals everywhere. Those are forms of energy healing. Being in nature, it to me is a form of energy healing. Doing your meditation, your breathing is another form of moving energy, all of that stuff. Whether you do yoga or you actually wanted to do somatic stuff, I can actually make my powerlifting a form of energy work if I'm really focusing on my breath and focusing on the muscle and all of those things. So there's many different ways we can move all of that energy. And it just helps us, because if you think about it, this is kind of part of the polyvagal theory. When we go through a stress response, when you watch like a cat or a dog chasing, well, the dog's usually chasing the cat. At the end, when the cat gets away, they shake off. They're finalizing that stress response. We don't do that. We get yelled at by whoever, our boss, our parent, or whatever, and we just hold on to it. And then we hold on to that stress throughout the day, and we can't really release it. Whereas, frankly, if you just jumped up and down in your office and moved your body or did something, you probably feel a lot better afterwards, because you're going to finalize that stress response.
I'm certified in something called TRE, trauma release exercise. And it's a methodology of getting the body into a space where you can actually shake off the energy from your stressful circumstances. And that is closing that loop. It's closing that energetic cycle. And we're taught that shaking is silly, sit down, don't move, stop making that noise, don't hum, don't rock. All of these things that little kids do, they do it naturally. And we're taught to behave. Thank you for bringing that to the table. And thank you for that explanation. For me, energy, everything is energy. So we're always moving. And so to be able to create wholeness with the energy that we have, that for me is energy healing. For me, healing is wholeness. Yep. And so when we bring ourselves into wholeness, that's a wonderful space. Thank you for all. This is so juicy. This is so wonderful for me. So swinging it back to psychedelics. And like I said, this is a very tender and expansive and exciting space for me to be speaking to another registered nurse around psychedelics. And many of the colleagues that I have, when I was leaving the hospital, I was like, look, I'm out of here. And they were like, what are you going to do? You're going to fail. You're not going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm doing all of this awesome stuff right now. And so now my colleagues are getting curious, my old colleagues that are in the hospital. What would you share with nurses who are on the fence about psychedelic experiences, about having psychedelic experiences themselves, about moving into a space of being supportive for psychedelic experiences, who are afraid that they're going to have their license taken, who are afraid that they're not going to be, that they're going to be crackheads, who are afraid of all of these things? What would you have to share for the nurses that are listening to this podcast that may be on the fence around just considering leaning into learning about integration or just learning about psychedelics, period?
Well, number one, fear is the biggest thing that's going to hold you back from everything in life. That's a big piece. It's just you have to have the courage to step outside of all that, because you're not going to lose your license because you did a psychedelic yourself. I think that's a big one. And then it's just about removing the stigma from it all. I like to explain the difference between a ceremonial approach compared to the way that maybe we did it when we were younger at a party or something like that, and talk more about the intention, talk about the energy, right? Your psychedelic, psilocybin, it's a plant. There's an energy to it. So talk about building a relationship with that plant. And then also all the prep and the integration and all of that stuff. Those are a lot of the big things. I think really explaining the difference between ceremonial usage and party usage helps remove a huge aspect of the stigma, and really explaining like what's the environment like, all of those different things.
This is another rub, is the idea of ceremonial. Most of the nurses that I know get afraid of the whole ceremony idea and are afraid of being converted into some type of weird cult or something like that. What would you have to say to them around the whole idea of being in ceremony?
Well, we use the word ceremony, and I think that probably more, to me, it comes more from shamanism and that kind of stuff. But it's when we do a psychedelic, there's a spiritual component to it. It's a connection to the universe, especially with psilocybin. That's really known for. We are all one when we have those journeys. So religion and all of that is often a conversation when you go into prep and everything there. There are some people who have converted their religions and all of that, but it's really just the process we call and if we need to use a different word for ceremony instead, if you just want to call it the experience, you can, but it's really just that relationship that you're building. And that to me is what ceremony, even if I go into, say you're doing a meditation group or like a sound bowl experience, or just to me, that's a ceremony. It's a group of people having a healing experience.
Thank you for that. And I have one more question about nurses, okay?
Yeah.
And people in healthcare, period. Now, you know about the high suicide rate of doctors and nurses. It's ridiculous how many of our colleagues are killing themselves. And I know as an ER nurse I've worked in ER for 23 of my 25 clinical years as a nurse. And the amount of vicarious trauma that I had to move through, and I didn't have any type of support with that. There was no way to downregulate my nervous system or get myself into a space of ease. What would you say to people, the nurses, the doctors who haven't been in the psychedelic space, who have been having challenges around substances, around letting go of things in regards to psychedelics being a space they can explore, moving beyond their traumatic circumstances and not being able to navigate the spaces that they're in? What would you have to share?
I think what would be the most beneficial is to find a group of like-minded people that you can talk to. Depending on where you are, we have groups within the psychedelic community or any of that you can actually just start talking to, and also working on tools that you can utilize that you can fit into your schedule, right? Because it's always making things accessible for people to help calm your nervous system while you're still engaging in what you're doing, because tools are going to be really important for your prep and your integration should you decide to go into a psychedelic experience. But I think it's really about being open to having these conversations. There's a lot of fear and stigma around even talking about what you have going on, if you feel depressed, if you have anxiety or any of that, because are you going to be able to do your job well? Any of those kinds of things. When you talk about first responders and firefighters and even people in the military, they can't talk about their mental health a lot of times because if you're taking a medication, even pilots, we had that instance recently with a pilot. If you're taking a medication, you can't do your job.
Thank you. Yeah, lots of stigma. Thank you for that. And so this has been amazing for me. I hope it's been amazing for you, and I know it's been amazing for our listeners and the people who get opportunities to watch these clips. Now, there's a tagline that you have that I absolutely love. I'm your spiritual meathead, right? I love it. As you speak about powerlifting and deadlifting and all of this stuff, if you haven't seen Dr. Jamie, check her out on Instagram. The body on this human being is absolutely incredible. Really, tell the people where they can find you, what your tagline is, your website, and the discovery call and all that stuff. Let's hear about it.
So my Instagram is at drdr.jamie.dnp. There's another one for my business. My business is Monarch Way. I don't post as much on that one, but it's at monarch.way. And then my website is monarch-way.com. That's actually, if you go to like just schedule a consult, it has discovery call there. That right through my website, you can actually schedule, even on my Instagram and my link tree. There's a direct link there to be able to schedule a discovery call. It's a free 20-minute call. We can talk about the different membership plans that I have within my business. Any questions that you have about me, can talk about what's going on with you, and get an idea on if it's a good fit, or answer any questions on functional medicine, that kind of stuff. Right now, I'm currently licensed in New York, Nevada, Montana, Colorado, Florida, Washington. I might have missed a state, Maryland. And there's a few other states that we're adding in.
Thank you for that. And so everybody who's listening, I invite you to get on the phone with Dr. Jamie. Okay. And if you're on the fence and you're scared and it's like, I don't know, I don't want to be hard sold, Dr. Jamie's not going to hard sell you. Okay. It's a discovery call. Get on the phone with Dr. Jamie. She's extremely knowledgeable and extremely approachable. The connection that we had at Reconsider was absolutely amazing. It was like magnetic. And so we spent a bunch of time talking and diving into some spaces. This is a human being that I would send anybody to. And I'm telling you this, I'd send my family there, I'd send Cole there, and I would go to Dr. Jamie. So I'm inviting you to go to the website, Monarch-Way, yeah?
Yep, Monarch-Way.
Yep, Monarch-Way, WAY.com. It's going to be in the show notes. So go check her out. Get on a call with her as soon as possible, because, it's only a matter of time before you can't have access, because you heard it here first, right? So I love y'all. Thank you so much. Dr. Jamie, if you had 2 sentences to share with people that you wanted them to leave with and walk away with something extremely valuable to carry with them that they could use every day, what would that be?
You can heal. And you are perfect just the way that you are.
Thank you. You can heal and you are perfect just the way that you are. That is what's up. I am so grateful to be here on the Psychedelic Coach Podcast with Dr. Jamie Kyei-Frimpong. I love you. Thank you so much. I'll catch y'all on the next episode. Be easy, be free, and don't forget,
integration is not optional.